Can you see me? Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here to exchange our views on family policy. Under normal circumstances, when discussing family, one should focus on duties. Duties that mothers and fathers are happy to perform. However, nobody dares to talk about duties anymore. Europe is obsessed with rights, not duties. The European media is engaged in endless talk about human rights, civil rights, and every right under the sun. So let us talk about rights. I'm representing the Center for Fundamental Rights, and what we promote is quite different. Rights that we regard as fundamental: the right to have a normal family, the right to your own traditions and culture. Europe has become an ideological battlefield, and you will find the Center for Fundamental Rights in the first front line of that battle. And let me boast that we are doing it quite efficiently under the guidance of our Director General, Miklós Szánto. Our motto is common sense, nation, and Christianity. And our objective is to prevent the damage done by the harmful ideologies that have hijacked Europe. The Center for Fundamental Rights is the biggest conservative think tank in Hungary that stands up against the ultra-liberal, woke LGBT propaganda directed against true European values. We're strong promoters of cooperation and networking between political forces that hold dear our European way of life and our European culture rooted in Christian traditions. Hence, the Center is active on the international stage. One of our achievements we are proud of is that we have recently organized CPAC Hungary. The Conservative Political Action Conference was initially a gathering of the American right, but by now it is a global gathering of conservative forces from around the world. Conservatives realized that they must coordinate their efforts if they are to stand up to the well-organized international network of the liberal NGOs and liberal media. The Center for Fundamental Rights organized the first CPAC in Europe last year, and we hosted it in Budapest again with a resounding success. Conservatives from Europe and America, more than 1,500 people, decision makers, journalists and influencers flocked to Budapest, where one of the key topics was family policy. Our institute realized that practical measures alone cannot work in an environment that has been brainwashed by the cancel culture and LGBT. Pro-family measures and incentives, no matter how generous, will never work if the young generation is emotionally set against notions like family or traditional values. The Center for Fundamental Rights pledges to have these attempts of undermining our nations and destabilizing our societies. We promote a narrative and provide arguments of plain common sense that conservative values work. We believe that the family and the nation are the natural framework of our life. That is why our Director General Miklós Szánto could state at the CPAC Hungary, Hungary is no country for woke men. As the distinguished guests of this event are all knowledgeable about family policy matters, I assume there is no need for any lengthy introduction to the subject, so allow me to cut right to the heart of the matter. I'll give you two figures. 10 years ago, the fertility rate in Hungary was 1.23, while at present it is 1.59. These two figures illustrate what I'm going to speak about today. On the one hand, it is a great achievement, an increase of 30% achieved by the hard work of the government of Hungary in 10 years. On the other hand, considering that a fertility rate of at least 2.0 is needed for a self-sustaining community, it shows that we are fighting an uphill battle. Hungary, Lithuania, and the entire Europe still have a long way to go and a lot of effort to make. Hence, let me share the Hungarian experience with you, because with the due modesty, we feel that Hungary has something to offer when it comes to family policy and does a groundbreaking job in this area. Hungary offers a model to be followed, an alternative that works. Certain elements of our complex family protection system have already been taken over by a number of European countries. As you may well know, Hungary is a mid-sized country of 10 million in Central Europe, with no natural resources to speak of, an economy with a lot of catching up to do after the decades of communism, and with a rich history of 1,000 years of statehood. This history, just like in the case of Lithuania, is defined by ceaseless battles for our independence from great powers. However, in the 21st century, we see that our spiritual independence is under threat too, and we have to protect our most fundamental rights and values from hostile ideologies. In its attempt to stop demographic decline, Hungary has devised a complex scheme of legal and financial support for young families. The Hungarian government allocates 5% of its GDP to family support measures, which is almost twice the average of developed countries. This proves the ambitious nature of the plan. The Hungarian model is unique as the EU supports and actively promotes immigration as a response to Europe's demographic disaster. Masses of people are imported, neither familiar with nor having the slightest sympathy for European values. Hungary has chosen a different path. We think that the right answer to demographic issues is not immigration, but supporting our families to have all the children they wish for. As Prime Minister Viktor Orbán put it very clearly, we subscribe to the idea that the view of demographic problems must be solved by relying on our own resources, mobilizing our own reserves, and by our own spiritual renewal. For fear that the Hungarian model is taken over by other countries, the EU has retaliated by political means against Hungary. Withholding EU funds due to Hungary, launching groundless allegations that Hungary has rule of law issues, starting legal procedures against Hungary under various pretexts. The Hungarian left liberal opposition actively helps international liberal network in their fight against the government's pro-family choices. Before going into specific measures of this policy, let me underscore the importance of bearing in mind that family policy cannot be discussed on its own. It is interdependent with other highly politicized issues. Immigration, neo-Marxist cancel culture, LGBT propaganda, and woke progressivism. These represent a soft power to put pressure on nations, families, and on human relations that we regard normal. Subsequently, any specific pro-family measure will attract ideologically motivated political attacks and will generate new waves of propaganda in the mass media and in the social media, targeting especially the young. That is the Hungarian experience. Thus, the Hungarian Child Protection Act of 2021 has provoked large-scale international campaign and attracted charges of homophobia and intolerance. Hungary was accused of curtailing the freedom of speech because it interdicts the propaganda of sex change surgery and alternative sexual lifestyles in school, protecting the influential minors. This legal act prohibits the display of any content that promotes homosexuality or sexual reassignment to minor because it has a detrimental effect on their development. Therefore, liberals are seriously concerned about the freedom of speech of drag queens in kindergartens. The Hungarian law states that the physical and mental health of children is a priority, and the sexual education of children is exclusively the prerogative of their parents. It is to be noted that these alternative sexual lifestyles are subject to absolutely no discrimination in Hungary, provided that it concerns adults. With the gender lobby gaining ground, Hungary considered it necessary to incorporate the protection of traditional family and children in the fundamental law, thus lending it constitutional level protection. The referent passage is often quoted in Hungarian public discourse. Every child has the right to a mother and a father. The fundamental law states that family is based on marriage between a man and a woman. Moreover, seeing the ideological developments taking place in Western European countries, it had to be established in the same fundamental law that the mother is a woman and the father is a man. As a result of the heavy criticism against these legal provisions, the Hungarian government had to initiate a referendum on child protection issues in 2022, where 95% of participants have validated the cabinet's decision and position on these issues. Beyond the legal and constitutional protection, the essence of the Hungarian family policy are the various allowances, grants, and benefits for young adults, so that their desire to have children not be subject to financial considerations. This seems to have attained its goal. Since 2010, when the incumbent government entered office, the number of marriages has doubled and the number of abortions was reduced to half. This complex system aims to improve long-term financial circumstances of families all along the period they are raising the children. The starting point of the support is marriage. Every married couple is entitled to a net annual tax credit of 300 euros for the first 2 years of the marriage. The so-called baby bond is the most popular and best performing government bond, which offers an interest premium of 3 percentage points above inflation, so it's inflation-proof. Another important financial help is the childbirth incentive loan for young married couples. Under this scheme, candidates can apply for an interest-free loan of up to almost 25,000 euros. The installment is postponed for 3 years after the birth of the first child. 30% of the amount is waived at the birth of the second child, and the full amount is waived at the birth of the third child. So practically speaking, if you have 3 children, you don't have to pay it back. The home buyer's allowance, the so-called CSOK, is a non-reimbursable grant for the purchase of or the construction of a property. To be eligible, parents must have or undertake to have at least 1 child. Coupled with the allowance, one can apply for a bank loan with state-subsidized interest rate, the home buyer's loan. A family with 2 children are eligible for a loan of 25,000 euros, while a family with 3 children can apply for 36,000 euros. Furthermore, the repayable amount is reduced with the birth of each child by almost 14,000 euros. To have a better understanding of the magnitude of this governmental support, combining the childbirth incentive loan, the home buyer's loan, and the home buyer's allowance, a young couple undertaking to have 3 children can get access to an amount that is enough to buy a full family detached house in certain regions of the country. And if they have the 3 children indeed, they'll have to pay back only about the third of the total amount they have taken, and even that with extremely advantageous interest rates. The above examples refer to ways and means the state supports starting a family and the actual birth of children. But Hungarian family policy does not stop there. The financial support provided all along the period of raising the children. Hungary devotes particular attention to families with young children. Several forms of support are available in the 3 years after the birth of a child. Uniquely in Hungary, in the first 6 months after giving birth, a woman receives more infant care allowance than their pre-birth earnings. The special child care benefit package offers increased financial support for mothers caring for young children who choose to return to work. After giving birth to her fourth child, a woman will never pay income tax again. One of the most prominent pillars of the conservative government's family policy is the family tax credit. Its guiding idea is that there should be no difference in the living standards of families with similar incomes but different number of children. In consequence, large families pay less tax on the same income than those who are childless or have fewer children. The above are facts and figures from the structure of the Hungarian family policy that has been built up since 2010, the year that the incumbent government entered office. However, that is not all there is to it. These examples could be carried on over and over. There are countless details of Hungarian family policy system that would not fit in the time frame of this presentation. To give a random example, the government even subsidizes the car purchase of large families by considerable amounts. To cut a long story short, it is best to sum up these details and technicalities by the words of Prime Minister Viktor Orbán uttered at the 4th Budapest Demographic Summit in 2021. The whole country must be made family-friendly. Ladies and gentlemen, the family-friendly approach and the decisive action has had its political rewards too. It may be safely assumed that it plays some part in the government having been re-elected 3 times since 2010. This is just as unique in Europe as the Hungarian family policy system. A word of warning for decision makers who might be sitting in this room: working for families is not such a bad strategy. It's had its political rewards too, beyond the moral ones. That is another lesson to be learned from the Hungarian example. True, you will be exposed to incessant political attacks from liberal quarters, from those preferring an atomized society of consumers. This is why we have to act and speak freely about it while we can. In this day and age, there are some places in Europe where you cannot promote traditional family values anymore, where you cannot have a career if you publicly declare your preference for traditions and normality. So, thank you for letting me speak freely here today, and thank you for choosing us over the World Cup. Thank you.